What if a simple act of kindness could change your life forever? Would you even know it when it happened? For Elena, an ordinary day turned into an extraordinary memory, thanks to a man who didn't expect anything in return. But what started as a small, seemingly inconsequential gesture blossomed into something far more meaningful, touching lives in ways she never could have imagined. It was a cold November evening, the kind of chill that made the normally mild Bay Area feel unforgiving. Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors superstar, had just wrapped up a tough practice session and was driving home. Despite his fame and the luxury car he was in, he preferred to avoid the chaos of busy roads. He liked the quieter routes, where he could reflect on the day. But little did he know that this simple decision would soon lead him into a moment that would change not only his life, but the life of a complete stranger. As Steph cruised down the winding suburban roads, he noticed something unusual ahead. A woman was stranded on the side of the road, waving in distress. Her car's hood was popped open, and steam was rising, almost like an SOS signal. While most other cars sped by without a second glance, Steph couldn't do the same. He wasn't that kind of person. His parents had always instilled in him the value of helping others whenever he could, and this moment felt no different. Without hesitation, he pulled over, rolled down his window, and asked if she needed help. The woman, visibly cold and frustrated, introduced herself as Elena. She was a single mom who had been on her way home after picking up groceries when her car had unexpectedly broken down. She had no cell service in the area, so she couldn't call for roadside assistance. Though Steph wasn't much of a mechanic, he offered to take a look under the hood. After fiddling with the engine for a few minutes, it became clear that it wasn't something he could fix. But instead of just leaving, he offered, "Let me give you a ride. We can figure out the car later." Elena was initially hesitant. She didn't recognize him, and the thought of accepting a stranger's help was risky. But Steph's warm smile and genuine concern put her at ease. She locked her car and got into his vehicle. The ride that followed would prove to be far more significant than either of them realized. As they drove, Steph turned up the heater to warm her up and casually asked, "Where are you headed?" Elena replied, "Just about 15 minutes away." She thanked him repeatedly, expressing her gratitude. "You didn't have to stop." Most people wouldn't have, but Steph just shrugged and said, "I couldn't just leave you out there. Everyone needs a little help sometimes." Their conversation shifted to lighter topics, and Elena mentioned her son, Max, a 7-year-old who was obsessed with basketball, especially the Warriors. Steph, intrigued, asked about the boy's favorite players. Elena, still unaware of who he was, casually said, "Max loves you the most, actually." Steph grinned, his identity still a secret. Instead of revealing himself, he continued asking her about her son, and even shared some general basketball tips, making Elena smile for the first time that evening. When they reached Elena's home, she thanked him again, offering to repay him somehow. But Steph simply waved her off. "Just take care of your son," he said before handing her his contact information. "Let me know what happens with your car, and I'll see if I can help." The next day, Elena received a call from a tow service. To her surprise, the car had been fixed, and the costs were fully covered. Even more astonishing, there was a note with the repair receipt that read, "Pay it forward when you can." For Elena, this act of generosity was more than just a favor. It was a lifeline. She had been struggling financially, trying to balance work and motherhood, and this unexpected kindness was a weight lifted from her shoulders. However, there was one significant detail Elena still didn't know. Steph Curry, the man who had gone out of his way to help her, was not just some kind stranger. He was a global superstar, and she had just been helped by one of the biggest names in basketball. 3 years went by, and life for Elena settled into a steady rhythm. Her son Max was now 10 years old, and his love for basketball had only grown. Every evening, he would dribble his ball outside, pretending to make game-winning shots, always shouting the name of his idol, Steph Curry. Though Elena often thought about the stranger who had helped her, she had no way of tracing him, and the Memory faded somewhat as she moved forward with her busy life. Then, one day, she received an unexpected invitation. The Golden State Warriors were hosting a charity event to support single parents and underserved communities. Elena had been nominated by a colleague at work to share her story, highlighting her journey of perseverance and gratitude. Nervous but excited, she agreed to attend. It was one thing to receive such an offer, but to have it come from the Warriors made it even more special. On the night of the event, the venue buzzed with excitement. Fans, philanthropists, and community members filled the space. Elena hadn't realized how big the event would be until she saw the turnout. Backstage, as she prepared to give her speech, she decided to share the story of the stranger who had helped her 3 years ago. It felt fitting, given the theme of kindness and community support. When her time came, Elena stepped onto the stage as she recounted the cold night her car had broken down and how a man she didn't know had gone out of his way to help. The audience listened intently. "He didn't have to stop. He didn't have to help me, but he did," she said. What struck me the most was that he asked for nothing in return. It reminded me that even the smallest acts of kindness can ripple out in ways we don't expect. The audience applauded warmly, but in the front row, one person clapped more enthusiastically than the rest. It was Steph Curry. His face showed recognition, and as Elena left the stage, he leaned over to his wife, Aisha, and whispered, "That's her." After the event, once the formal program had ended, Steph made his way backstage. Elena was chatting with a few guests when she felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning around, she saw a familiar face, though she couldn't immediately place him. "Excuse me," the man said with a warm smile. "I couldn't help but notice your story tonight. It was inspiring." Elena smiled politely, still unsure of who he was. "Thank you," she said. The man continued, "I think we've met before. About 3 years ago, you had car trouble." In that moment, Elena's heart skipped a beat. The warmth in his voice, the kindness in his eyes, it all came rushing back. "It was you," she gasped. Steph chuckled, admitting, "Guilty as charged. I couldn't just leave you out there." Elena was speechless. The man she had admired for years, whose talent and humility she had long respected, was the very same stranger who had stopped to help her when no one else would. "I don't know what to say," she stammered. "You changed my life." Steph shook his head. "You were the one who inspired me. Hearing about everything you've done for your son and your community since then, it's incredible. You're the one making a difference." The two of them talked for a while longer, catching up on how their lives had changed since their chance encounter. Before they parted ways, Steph promised to send tickets for Elena and Max to attend a Warriors game. "Kindness has a way of circling back when you least expect it," he said. A week later, Elena and Max attended their first Warriors game. Steph had arranged for them to sit courtside, where Max could see his idol up close. After the game, Steph surprised Max by inviting him onto the court to take a few shots, and the boy was ecstatic. For Elena, the experience wasn't just about meeting a celebrity or attending a game. It was about the reminder that kindness, no matter how small, has a way of coming full circle. The simple, selfless act of a man who didn't know her, who could have walked on by, ended up being a defining moment in Elena's life. And it was a lesson she would carry with her always. Kindness truly has a ripple effect.